Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's first meeting for 2025. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome so many residents who've joined us today for this meeting. We understand there are a lot of concerns in the community and we welcome you joining us here today. And also for those online at home who are watching, thank you for joining us. This is our first meeting outside of business hours. Many of you may know that the councillor group, The councillor group unanimously passed a motion last year to take business meeting times outside of business hours so residents could attend. It was remarked at the time that crowds would not come and people would not come, but I think this puts paid to that residents are back and we're delighted to have you here. So thank you for that. This evening's meeting, we have 4 officer reports to be considered in open council and no officer reports in closed council. I'd like to acknowledge my fellow new councillors here tonight, as well as our director team. We've got Steve Coldham, who's the Acting Chief Executive Officer, James Collins, the Director of City Planning and Infrastructure, Jen Bednar, Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Callum Paddy, Acting Director of Community Life, and we're supported this evening by the Office of Council and our audio-visual team. We have a number of other senior staff also from Council here, so welcome to you all. I'll move on to item 1.1, which is our first agenda item, which is our standard statement of acknowledgement of country. The city of... Can I please ask for some courtesy? I ask for some courtesy and respect as we work through our agenda. I will not proceed until there is quiet in the room. This meeting will not proceed if there are continual interjections. The City of Casey proudly acknowledges the traditional owners, Casey's Aboriginal communities and their rich culture, and pays respects to their elders past, present and future. We acknowledge Aboriginal people as Australia's first peoples and as the traditional owners and custodians of the land of which we work and live. Quiet, please. We have an agenda to follow. We have formal business that will follow that. Item 1.2, reading of the Council's diversity statement. The City of Casey is home to remarkable diversity with many cultures, languages, faiths and communities of worship, ages, LGBTQI+ identities and landscapes, together forming our rich and dynamic community story. From our first Australians to our most recent arrivals and every wave between, the City of Casey welcomes and represents all community members and their respective ambitions to live healthy, rewarding and happy lives. We recognise this diversity in our community and in the room tonight and our strength, and we aim to share, nurture and celebrate it. Moving on to Item 2, confirmation of minutes. There is one previous meeting minutes to be confirmed. This is for the council meeting held on 10th of December 2024. Is there a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of this meeting? Have I got a mover?
I'll move it, Mayor.
Councillor Perry, thank you. We have a mover and a seconder.
I'll second.
By show of hands, please, councillors. Councillor Rowe. Seconder. It's not practice to read the minutes just for the gallery. It's not practice or part of the agenda. Minutes are available. Minutes are available for gallery to review, and councillors have already read and are now moving and seconding those minutes. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. This is a very important agenda item, particularly given the history of Casey Council. I've considered my obligations under Section 130 of the Local Government Act 2020 and do not have a conflict of interest relevant to the agenda papers. Do any council officers have a conflict of interest regarding reports presented this evening? I see no hands. Do any of my fellow councillors have any conflicts of interest in the agenda that they wish to declare? I see no hands. On that note, we will move on to our next item, which is Item 4, public questions. But before we commence public questions, I wanted to take a moment on behalf of our councillors to address a few important topics that we know have been of concern in our community. Firstly, I'd like to speak about the local laws and permits for private property. I know this has raised many questions across our community, and I want to assure you that myself and my fellow councillors have heard your concerns and we are taking them seriously. Over the past few weeks, we've had the opportunity to meet with many residents and local community groups about this topic. On behalf of all the councillors, I want to acknowledge that the lack of information on the council's website contributed to a lot of confusion in our community and amongst our newly elected councillors. In response, we immediately asked officers to review the content and improve the clarity of the information, making it easier to understand and access. Yes, this did take several attempts, but councillors wanted to be sure that the information on the website was clear and accurate and was acceptable for our community. My fellow councillors and I have now also been briefed comprehensively by officers on the background and the intent of the Casey Community Local Law, as well as the purpose of the permits. I want to reassure the community that local law permits are common across Victorian councils and are not unique to Casey. They are only issued when it is absolutely necessary. Typically, when complaints are made, please allow me to finish, when complaints are made regarding the local amenity, safety and wellbeing. Since 2023, only 20 permits have been issued. And the feedback that I've received in the many conversations that I've had with residents, as well as my fellow councillors, indicates that these were necessary and effective. 16 of those 20 permits relate to long and oversized vehicles being parked in residential property. This has an effect on the amenity. And the permits on the amenity of the local community. And the permits from the people I've spoken to have been deemed necessary and appropriate in maintaining that. To this end, with only 20 permits issued, I ask for quiet please, and I'll finish my statement. To this end, with only 20 permits issued, Council has received a total of $8,000 in revenue from private land use permits over the last 18 months. This shows this is not a revenue-raising exercise, as has been suggested. Each year, please remain seated, please remain quiet and allow me to finish my statement. Each year, Council receives around 10,000 complaints related to local amenity. This is not an opportunity for interjections. There is a public question time which will follow, which will answer questions raised by residents. Please refrain from interjections. I will now continue. Through my many conversations that I've had with residents since being elected, it is clear to me that maintaining the character and the tidiness of our neighbourhoods is a top priority for our community. Our local laws are an important tool to help protect the character, and they also align with practices in other councils. My fellow councillors and I have heard your concerns, and we take them seriously. We understand the frustration of feeling unheard on matters over many years of administration, and that the impact that this has had on your property and livelihood. If you have been personally affected by these private land permits, I encourage you to reach out and share your concerns directly with your newly elected councillors and myself as Mayor. Your voices matter, and we want to ensure that they are not only acknowledged, but they're also considered in shaping a fair and balanced approach to our decision making. Open communication is key, and we are committed to advocating for greater transparency and consultation moving forward. On this, in relation to transparency, I also want to address the recent online discussions and media coverage regarding a property in Hampton Park, where several unregistered vehicles were removed. I know that this has led to a number of residents joining us here tonight. After seeing some information, please allow me to continue. I will continue. After seeing information being shared online, we raised with officers to find out what actually occurred. Please refrain. I will finish my statement. Please be quiet. This is a public meeting. There will be an opportunity for public questions next. It's important to note this was a situation where council received complaints from the local community about local amenity. The owner of the vehicles... Please allow me to continue. Please show the courtesy and respect to those fellow residents who have joined us today. Thank you. I will continue. The owner of the vehicles was storing items on a neighbouring property without permission and without authority of the property owner. I will continue. Council has been in touch with the property owners, who are a local church and who have owned the property since 2015. The property owners confirmed no lease arrangements are in place with the neighbouring properties to store cars or boats, trailers or shipping containers. Officers have placed further background on the council website about this situation, and I encourage the community to view this updated information. Lastly, I'd like to touch on the very real concerns from residents about the proposed waste transfer station in Hampton Park. I know and I acknowledge that there are many residents here today who have come here with questions and have genuine concerns about the impact that this proposal could have on our community. Specifically, there are concerns regarding EPA's community consultation process, which will determine whether a development licence is issued for this proposal. This process is currently ongoing. Since being elected Mayor, I've written to the EPA to stress the importance of the EPA's role in ensuring that the community has a chance to voice their concerns about the proposed location and the potential risks for community health and safety. Following the latest update from the applicant Veolia, today I've written to the EPA again on behalf of Council and our community to reiterate the importance of completing in full the community consultation and responding in full to the residents' concerns about this proposal. As councillors, we look forward to participating in further meetings with residents and resident groups regarding the proposed waste transfer station over the coming weeks. We will continue to listen, to advocate and to do what we can in our power to address resident concerns. On that note, I understand we have quite a few public questions this evening on these topics that I've just mentioned and also on others. We look forward to hearing these questions as a councillor group, addressing the issues that are important to residents, and I'll now hand over to our acting CEO, Steve Coldham, to begin the public questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So this evening we've got about 63 questions, so we ask for your patience as we work through answering each of those. The first theme of questions is around vaccinations. And the first question is from Joanne de Anabli. Can Casey Council confirm whether it has an immunisation policy and practice...
Quiet, please.
If Casey has immunisation procedures and practice guidelines, and if such procedures exist, can you provide documentations on their implementation? This will be answered by Ms Bednar.
Thank you, Mr Coldham. The City of Casey have detailed procedures that cover all aspects of the immunisation service, both administration and clinical procedures, for instance, dealing with adverse reactions to vaccines. These have been developed from the Australian Immunisation Handbook, the Department of Health Immunisation website and the Guidelines for Immunisation Practice in Local Governments, which have been developed by the Victorian Department of Health. These resources are publicly available and can be accessed from the relevant authority's website.
Please refrain from interjecting. Sir, this is not an opportunity to interject. Can I remind residents that this public question time is for residents who have submitted public questions prior to the meeting to be addressed at the meeting. It is not an opportunity for interjections, dialogue, or a conversation or debate. It is an opportunity for questions to be answered. Ms Bednar. We will be answering every question that has been submitted.
Okay, keep going.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Question 2 from Peter Duncanson. When was Casey Council's immunisation policies and procedures last reviewed? Why are these not available on Casey's official website, and what are the steps taken to ensure public transparency on this matter? It'll be answered by Ms Bednar.
All procedures are reviewed annually and on an as-need basis throughout the year to incorporate any changes in the immunisation industry. Triggers for review can include scheduled annual review, changes in legislation or the National Immunisation Program, changes in systems or processes in management of immunisation data. Immunisation procedures are not council-endorsed documents, rather internal working documents. Thus, they are not required to be available on council's website. These procedures have been developed from the Australian Immunisation Handbook, the Department of Health...
Sorry, Ms Bednar. May I ask the gallery to please refrain from speaking so that Ms Bednar can continue to respond to the public question from a resident.
As mentioned, these resources are publicly available and can be accessed from the relevant authority's website.
Question 3 is from Paul Greenman. Has the CEO received the Port Hedland Council report on mRNA vaccines? What is Council's response and position in relation to the population of Casey? This will also be responded to by Ms Bednar.
Thank you. In November 2024, Council's public health team received correspondence in relation to the Town of Port Hedland Council resolution on COVID-19 vaccines. This correspondence included a copy of the Town of Port Hedland Special Council meeting minutes dated 11th October 2024. The meeting agenda referenced concerns regarding DNA contamination in COVID-19 vaccines. These claims have been previously debunked by the Therapeutic Goods Administration, and as such, council officers did not support it.
Quiet, please. Due to the continual interjections, I ask the public gallery to cease interjecting, to remain silent during the council meeting. This is a requirement under clause 77 of our governance rules. If the gallery does not remain silent, I will have no other choice but to adjourn the meeting.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The next question relates to Hampton Park Hill, and the question is from David Creighton. There has been ongoing issues with rubbish and mud on Hallam Road outside the exit to the Hallam Road tip. Now that you want a transfer station, what plans included in the ongoing maintenance for keeping the road clean? Please don't refer to Lynn Park Nursery as the dirt and rubbish extend all the way to the tip drive. This will be answered by Mr Collins.
Council will undertake an investigation of the current reported issue with the maintenance of the road and liaise where appropriate with the EPA to resolve any non-compliance with either the current planning permit and or the landfill licence for the current operation. Regarding ongoing maintenance of the road, a condition of the planning permit for the future waste transfer station states that the landfill and the waste transfer must not operate concurrently unless with the written consent of the responsible authority. This should address any future road maintenance issues caused by the operating landfill.
The next question, also by David Creighton. I hear the beeping of machinery moving around the tip every morning at my house near the Hallam tip. What plans are in place to reduce this impact given recent approvals for a transfer station?
Council will undertake an investigation of the reported current issue with the noise and liaise with the EPA to resolve any non-compliance with either the planning permit or the landfill licence for the current operation. Noise impacts were considered as part of the assessment process for the waste transfer station. A condition of the planning permit for the future waste transfer station states that the landfill site and the waste transfer station must not operate concurrently unless with the written consent of the responsible authority. A condition of the planning permit for the waste transfer station also requires an updated noise risk assessment to be prepared and approved prior to any development commencing.
The next question is from Mr Troy Van Grop. Can Council please articulate how this planning permit has been approved despite the fact that EPA separation distance is not met and the EPA hasn't made a decision? Council advised earlier that no decision would be made until EPA reviewed the application and made a decision. I have a screenshot of this statement from your webpage before you changed it. Thank you, Mr Collins.
The separation distance guidelines published by the EPA provide the framework for assessing proposals that seek to operate within a recommended separation distance and allows for a variation to the nominated distance subject to an assessment. In light of this, technical reports were submitted by Veolia as part of the planning permit application and were referred to the EPA, and they had no objection. A further technical review of these documents will form part of the EPA's consideration of the development licence, which is a condition of the planning permit.
On the same topic, odour, from Diana James Dodunsky. It's well known that waste stations have bad odours. What do we want? Sorry, we want to know what your plan is to manage these odours. Thank you, Mr Collins.
An air quality assessment was lodged with the application for the Hallam Road Waste Transfer Station, which identified that the risk of offensive odour was assessed to be low. Controls to limit odour have been incorporated. Controls to limit odour.
I ask the gallery to please be quiet to allow the response to continue.
Controls to limit odour have been incorporated into the design of the proposed facility. These will be reviewed by the EPA as part of the development licence application. To address any future potential odour issues, the waste transfer station, a condition of the planning permit, requires a risk management and monitoring plan undertaken by a suitably qualified practitioner, again approved by the EPA and submitted to the responsible authority prior to development commencing.
Thank you, Mr Collins. The next question is from Danielle Rouse. Given the significant health, environmental and social impacts associated with the waste transfer station, including potential air and water contamination, traffic congestion and the loss of parkland, how does Council justify approving this facility despite clear non-compliance with the EPA's new separation buffer guidelines?
The decision to grant a planning permit is consistent with the adopted Hampton Park Hill Development Plan, which underwent consultation and was developed to implement the state government's direction in relation to waste and resource recovery. The separation distance guidelines published by the EPA provide the framework for assessing proposals that seek to operate within a recommended separation distance and allows for a variation to the nominated distance subject to an assessment. In light of this, technical reports were submitted by Veolia as part of the planning permit application and were referred to the EPA, who had no objection. A further technical review of these documents will form part of the EPA's consideration of the development licence. Veolia is required to comply with the relevant legislation applying to the EPA and council approvals. Any non-compliance will be followed up by the relevant authority. Veolia also engage with the community and council's representatives via their community reference group and website.
Thank you. The next question is from Karen Young. Have all the elected councillors been made aware of the over 1,000 objections from concerned local residents, objections to the proposed waste transfer facility?
Councillors have had 2 formal briefings about the future waste transfer station, as well as receiving access to background information relating to the earlier public exhibition processes on the Hampton Park Hill Development Plan. Many councillors have also received direct correspondence from the community about the waste transfer station, as well as being aware of numerous social media posts about the website, about the site.
The next question is also from Karen Young. People may be unclear about the likely cause of the smell complained about to the EPA. Have councillors been informed that landfill gas can include the smelly, toxic, sometimes lethal gas hydrogen sulphide, as well as methane, which is not particularly smelly?
Councillors have had two formal briefings about the future waste transfer station, as well as receiving access to background information. Any residents' concerns about odours coming from the current operating landfill site should be reported directly to the EPA.
The next question is from Raymond Darley. Given that the council has granted a building permit for a waste transfer station at 290 Hallam Road, which will create a new 500-metre odour zone that goes beyond the existing landfill gas buffer zone, will council send letters to the newly affected landowners who did not receive written communication about this proposal?
Council had consideration to the EPA separation distance guidelines when deciding to grant a permit for the waste transfer station. The waste transfer station will not create a new odour buffer zone. Risk assessments and technical documents supporting the proposal were prepared and mitigation measures designed to take into account the distance between the proposed waste transfer station and residential properties. The EPA consulted on their draft guidelines and received submissions before finalising them. No additional consultation on the EPA separation distance guidelines beyond what the EPA has already taken is proposed.
Thank you, Mr Collins. A second question from Raymond Darley. Will the council accept responsibility when a hazardous incident occurs at the proposed waste transfer station and verify that council is fully aware of the state of knowledge of information that is well known, factual and readily available on the high risks that a WTS presents to the health and residents of Hampton Park, Limbrook, Cranbourne North and Narre Warren South, especially when it's only 250 metres from the nearest family home?
As I've stated before, the separation distance guidelines published by the EPA provide the framework for assessing proposals that seek to operate within a recommended separation distance and does allow for variations to the nominated distance subject to an assessment. In light of this, technical reports were submitted by Veolia as part of the planning permit application and were referred to the EPA, and they had no objection. A further technical review of these documents will form part of the EPA's consideration of the development licence, which is a condition of the planning permit.
The next question from resident James McCarney was... So from resident James McCarney, why was this venture approved without adequate community inclusion as part of the decision-making process? All applications by Veolia must be rejected, as this will endanger the community health and safety.
The adopted Hampton Park Hill development plan was subject to public consultation. The site of the waste transfer station is located on land identified in the adopted Hampton Park Hill development plan as being appropriate for waste and resource recovery. The provisions of the Casey planning permit do not require additional public consultation when a planning permit application for a waste transfer station is generally in accordance with the adopted Hampton Park Hill development plan.
The next question is from resident Tammy Quirios. And why is it that noise pollution, odour, traffic and EPA buffers do not have a bearing on issuing Veolia with a permit? Clearly, council have not considered any of the above. The trucks would be travelling not even by 10 metres from people's back fence. It is time council back the people they represent. Take a leaf from the Mayor of Geelong.
Noise, traffic, odour and the EPA separation distance guidelines were considered in Council's decision to approve the planning permit for the waste transfer station. Conditions have been included in the permit to manage amenity. The planning approval is subject to separate consent being obtained by the EPA for a development licence. If the EPA issues a development licence, it would include specific conditions requiring Veolia to confirm the facility and any environmental controls that can operate as designed to manage health and amenity impacts on noise and odour.
The next question is from resident Connie Meyer.
Just keep them going.
Sir, we will continue with the public questions and we will get to all public questions that have been submitted.
So a lot of people in Limbrook, Narre Warren South and Cranbourne North voted for council members that were opposed to Hampton Park transfer facility. Can you please tell us what steps you're currently taking to fight against this facility being right in the residential area?
As a planning permit has been determined to support the waste transfer station in this location, councillors are now focused on and actively monitoring the EPA development licence process. As the Mayor has mentioned, the Mayor and councillors have subsequently made multiple representations to the EPA, expressing the importance of considering the community's concerns as part of the development licence process.
Thank you, Mr Collins. The next question is from Jackie Lawn about transparency and procedural integrity. Were councillors fully informed no technical assessment had been carried out by the EPA before discussing or deciding the application? How has council ensured transparency and accountability in its handling of this matter? And has the council documented its communications with the EPA, the Minister and other relevant bodies regarding the lack of a technical assessment?
The separation distance guidelines published by the EPA provide the framework for assessing proposals that seek to operate within a recommended separation distance and does allow for variations to the nominated distance subject to an assessment. In light
Every
of this,
question will be answered. Mr Collins, can you please start from the top? I didn't gather that.
the separation distance guidelines published by the EPA provide the framework for assessing proposals that seek to operate within a recommended separation distance and allows for a variation to the nominated distance subject to an assessment. In light of this, technical reports were submitted by Veolia as part of the planning permit application and were referred to the EPA, and they had no objection. A further technical review of these documents will form part of the EPA's consideration of the development licence, which is a condition of the planning permit. Council's referral process to the EPA has been documented.
Thank you, Mr Collins. The next question is from Anthony Sassone. The City of Whittlesea and City of Greater Geelong have both resolved to make representations to the Minister to oppose incinerators in their municipalities. Given the significant community concerns of the proposed waste transfer station at Hampton Park by Veolia, will the newly elected councillors of Casey stand up for their residents and advocate to the government to stop this facility going ahead?
Councillors have had several briefings about the waste transfer station and understand that the planning permit has been issued. Councillors are aware of the current development licence assessment process and have subsequently made several representations to the EPA as part of its assessment.
Thank you. The next question is from Sharon Lynch. I'm concerned about the approval of a waste transfer site just 200 metres from a residential area. Clause 53.10 of the Victorian planning provisions require greater separation to protect against odour, dust and noise, which impact health and amenity. Could you clarify how this aligns with clause 53.10? What assessments were done to ensure public health?
Council referred the planning permit application to the EPA in accordance with the separation distance guidelines and clause 53.10 of the planning scheme. The EPA did not object to the proposal, and further technical analysis of the risk assessments for the noise and odour emissions will be completed by the EPA as part of a development licence application. Conditions of the planning permit address noise, landfill gas risk and compliance with an EPA risk management and monitoring plan, amongst others.
The next question is from Chris Lucy regarding ministerial approval and DPO1 compliance. Has Council received full ministerial approval for Planning Scheme Amendment C294 before granting any development approvals? If not, what legal basis did Council proceed with approvals without ministerial sign-off? And has Council sought legal advice on whether proceeding without full of DPO1 could expose its legal challenges?
Planning Scheme Amendment C294 is currently with the Minister for Planning, waiting authorisation for public exhibition. While the amendment proposes some changes to the existing planning controls, it does not prohibit or prevent planning permit applications being submitted for permitted uses in the existing schedule to the special use zone. There is no legal reason why consideration and a decision could not be made for a planning permit application for a waste transfer station. Amendment C294 does not change the current planning controls that enable consideration of this type of use.
Thank you. Now, next question is from Chris Lucy again, and it's EES. Given overwhelming community opposition, including 1,052 objections, has Council referred the waste transfer station to the Minister for an EES determination under the Environment Effects Act 1978? If not, what justification has been provided considering the environmental, social and health concerns?
A referral to the Minister for an environmental effects statement determination is not considered necessary given the individual referral criteria as outlined in the Act. Technical reports provided in support of the waste transfer station application indicate that impacts associated with the proposal can be addressed, subject to appropriate design measures and operational controls, which are all subject to the further planning and EPA approval.
The next question is from resident Liz Wagstaff. What are the plans to compensate property owners for the inevitable significant drop in property values as a result of the waste transfer station proceeding? Our home will be impacted significantly by noise given the hours of operation of the waste transfer station and traffic levels on Hallam Road.
The State Government and the Hampton Park Hill Development Plan both identify the site of the waste transfer station as being appropriate for waste and resource recovery. Planning case law has historically established that a potential change to property values is not a planning consideration. Any decision must accord with the relevant planning controls applicable at the time of making a decision. A noise risk assessment was lodged with the planning application. This assessment was also referred to the EPA. The report concluded that the potential for noise to adversely impact nearby residents is low for all periods. An updated noise risk assessment is required to be prepared as part of the planning permit to ensure that the assessment is based on current conditions and legislation prior to any development commencing on the site.
The next question is from Jason Barnard. What is the latest on the waste transfer station application and why was non-elected bureaucrat appointed by administrators to act, firstly on behalf of the residents and in particular on behalf of the residents directly affected by the position and activities of the proposed waste transfer station? Why has the community not been adequately consulted?
Under Council's instruments of delegation, Council planning officers have the authority to perform tasks or make decisions on behalf of Council for all planning permit application. The decision to grant a planning permit is consistent with the adopted Hampton Park Hill Development Plan, which was subject to community consultation and was developed to implement the state government's direction in relation to waste and recovery or resource recovery. Consideration was given to matters raised through the community consultation prior to the development plan being adopted. The provisions of the Casey planning scheme do not require additional public consultation when a planning permit application for a waste transfer station is generally in accordance with the adopted Hampton Park Hill Development Plan.
Thank you, resident. The next question is from Bernadette Dixon. Under Section 114 of the Local Government Act 2020, Council must provide public notice and valuation before land transactions. Given the Hampton Park Development Plan designates Lot 2 as open space, has Council met these requirements? Further, as the land swap of Lot 1 and Lot 4 and the boundary extension of Lot 10A to Lot 2 occurred before 2022 and without community consultation, what basis justified these actions?
As Council is not a landowner within the precinct and no land transactions have taken place, S 114 of the Local Government Act 2020 does not apply. Nevertheless, the exchange of Lot 1 in lieu of Lot 4 was adopted at the February 2020 Council meeting, then reflected in the draft Hampton Park Hill Development Plan that was on public consultation mid-2022. Submissions were reported to Council in December 22 and Council resolved to adopt the development plan on the 18th of July 2023 Council meeting.
The next question is from Bernadette Dixon. Under Section 11... Oh, sorry, I've just done that one. The second question from Bernadette Dixon. Given Viola's VCAT proceedings to expedite an EPA decision, can Council confirm whether it faced any external pressure to accelerate its decision? Was there urgency to issue approvals, knowing there's already a signed agreement with a SEMAWAP to develop waste to another site?
Viola's application to VCAT in relation to the development licence is a matter for the EPA and VCAT and not Council. Under Council's instruments of delegation, Council planning officers have the authority to perform tasks or make planning decisions on behalf of Council. The application was submitted in December 2023, 11 months prior to the decision, and was independently assessed by officers and referred to the EPA. The location of the waste transfer station is generally in accordance with the endorsed Hampton Park Hill Development Plan, which was prepared and adopted by Council in July 2023.
All right, the next two questions are from Gary Page. Given the Council's interest in land through Section 173 agreements and designation of Lot 2A for open public space, has Council received independent legal advice that the Subdivision Act, Section 24, as detailed in the Local Government Best Practice Guideline for sale and exchange and transfer of land does not apply? Thank you.
Council ensures that all processes relating to land acquisition, disposal and transfer adheres to all relevant legislative requirements. Council utilise the expertise of legal firm Maddocks for the development and execution of the Section 173 agreement.
The second question from Mr Page. Given the difference in the 1st of January 24 site valuation per hectare between Lot 2A and 10A, what will be the current site valuation charges for 2A and 10A? What is the site valuation benefit that Viola will receive?
Council considered the merits of the land being transferred as public open space in its report on the 18th of February 2020. This detailed the benefits to the community in detail, which was supported through a council resolution. It is well established principle that the valuation of land is not a relevant planning consideration.
Next question is from Viv Payne. With Council considering a compulsory buffer overlay on many properties surrounding the Hampton Park landfill, real estate agents claim will result in lower values. Can Council please clarify how the buffer zone is applied? Is it 500 metres around the entire landfill, or will a different buffer zone apply to the position allocated to the waste transfer station?
Hampton Park Hill Development Plan identifies a need to investigate whether a buffer area overlay should be applied to land within 500 metres of the Hallam Road landfill to manage the potential risk of landfill gas mitigation. The Hampton Park Hill Development Plan does propose that any future buffer area overlay would address amenity issues such as odour, noise or litter. EPA new guidelines recommend a 500 buffer for landfill gas and details how this buffer is measured and applied. The Casey's planning scheme and EPA guidelines will continue to apply to existing and new land uses that require buffers.
Our last question related to this topic is from Tracy Whelan. With Council considering a compulsory buffer overlay on many properties surrounding Hampton Park landfill, so I'm just reading it, it looks like it's a repeat of the question above, sorry. That concludes that topic, and now we'll just move into our additional public questions related to the local laws permit issue. And the next question on this topic is from Neville Abry. Do I need a permit to ride a motorbike in the City of Casey? If so, how many residents have applied for this permit in this financial year? What do I get in return after I pay money for the permit to ride? And where does the revenue raised from the motorbike permits end up? This will be answered by Mr Paddy.
Motorcycle riders must comply with the Road Safety Rules 2017 when using their motorcycles. To use a motorcycle for recreation purposes on private land, a local law permit is required. 2 local law permits have been issued this financial year. Permit conditions for riding a recreational vehicle enable the activity to occur whilst ensuring any nuisance impacting neighbours is mitigated or removed. A permit may include limiting location of the use or certain times of the day to limit noise and dust or to prevent riding from impacting pets and livestock. Revenue raised through permits and infringements contributes towards Council's expenditure on infrastructure, services, community projects and activities within the municipality.
Just hold. We have further questions on this topic. I ask for quiet, please, so we can continue to answer resident questions.
The next question from Amjad Gill. Casey Community Local Law 2023 expired before it could commence. An amendment to correct this error was made on 2nd Jan 2025, but has not been gazetted. Does this mean the Local Law 2018 has never been revoked and is still active? This will be answered by Ms Bednar.
The Casey Community Local Law 2023 did not expire prior to its commencement. It became effective on the 1st of July 2024 and the Local Law 2018 was revoked as of the 1st of July 2024. An update to the public-facing document on 2nd of January 2025 was an administrative revision to correct a formatting error regarding the dates, which were not initially included on the public website. The updated version from 2nd January contained the same dates as those published in the Gazette.
The next question from Amjad Gill is, in the minutes from 10th of December 2024, Council clarifies that governance sub-rules 107.4 and 117.2 pertain to local government election periods. Does this mean councillors may disregard these sub-rules outside of the local government election periods by using resources to advance a state or federal campaign, as in sub-rule 10.7.4, or adopting party political positions in sub-rule 117.2? This will also be answered by Ms Bednar.
Councillors may not disregard these sub-rules outside of local government election periods by using council resources to advance the state or federal campaign. As per the Councillor Code of Conduct, councillors swore an oath that they will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the municipality, of the municipal community of Casey. I will abide by the Councillor Code of Conduct and uphold the standards of conduct set out in the Councillor Code of Conduct. I will faithfully and impartially carry out and exercise the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 2020 and any other act to the best of my skill and judgment. Section 6.3 of the Councillor Code of Conduct, Use of Council Resources, states that councillors recognise the need to exercise appropriate prudence in the use of council resources and that they are used solely in the public interest. This includes not using public funds or resources in a manner that is improper or unauthorised, including in a way that creates an impression of council endorsement. It also includes not using council resources, including staff, facilities, equipment and/or intellectual property for electoral or other purposes.
The next question is from Mick Angier. I'd like to express there are lots of motoring enthusiasts in the southeastern suburbs, so I'm curious to know what gives council the right to restrict someone from tinkering on their pride and joy on their property and in a society where kids are stuck behind screens continuously. It's rewarding for a father and son dialed up on... I, for one, object greatly to council sticking the nose into what I do on my property. This will be answered by Mr Paddy.
A member of the community simply working on their car, tinkering or maintaining their vehicle on their own land does not require a local law permit.
The next question is from Thomas Capitani. I assume neither the CEO nor the administrators have not informed the councillors that they can legally vote to overturn protocols and local laws. Please explain why they have not provided this clarity to the new councillors on this subject, and this will be answered by Ms Bednar.
Councillors have been briefed on the Casey Community Local Law and opportunities for their input as part of their induction to councillors. Councillors have also received a suite of resources, policies and procedures to further explain governance processes and advice.
Got a second question from Mr Capitani, and it is the Local Law 23 has an end date unless revoked earlier of June 2034. Given the strong public backlash over summer to private land use permit schemes, will the newly elected councillors review these earlier? And this will also be answered by Ms Bednar.
Councils utilise local laws to respond to issues and community needs within a local context. They typically deal with, but are not limited to, protection of local amenity as well as regulating activities on council-controlled land and roads. Casey's councillors have received a thorough briefing on the Casey Community Local Law 2023, which included both the intent and application of the local law. This briefing demonstrated the Casey Community Local Law 2023 fulfills the objectives of what a local law is intended to do, which is to regulate and manage activities of people within the municipal district which may be dangerous, unsafe or detrimental to the quality of life of other people in or the environment of the municipal district.
Quiet, please. Please remain seated if you have a chair. Next question.
The next question is from our resident Marzina Mansilla. Would the newly elected councillors initiate a formal review of the local laws? And will this process include public consultation?
The community...
This will be answered by Ms Bednar.
Thank you, Mr Goldham. The Community Local Law 2023 is a 10-year document that last underwent an extensive review in 2023. In accordance with Council's community engagement policy, the Community Local Law 2023 underwent a public consultation process that commenced on the 20th of September 2023 and concluded on the 20th of November 2023, with no submissions from the community received. Prior to endorsement, the Community Local Law 2023 also underwent an independent legal review. At this time, there are no plans to review the document.
The next question is from Tammy Robertson. Are the people that are authorising for cars to be illegally removed from private property without documentation going to face disciplinary action and be criminally investigated for theft or trespassing? This will be answered by Mr. Paddy.
Local laws officers are authorised under the Local Government Act 1989. Section 224 of the Local Government Act 1989 states that an authorised officer...
Mr. Paddy, just please pause. Can we please get some quiet? Allow the response to be made by Mr. Paddy. Can you start from the top, please, Mr. Paddy?
Local laws officers are authorised under the Local Government Act 1989. Section 224 of the Local Government Act 1989 states that an authorised officer may enter any land or building in the municipal district at any reasonable time to carry out and enforce this or any other act or any regulation or local law. This means that a local laws officer...
I remind the gallery to be courteous and respectful and allow public questions to be answered.
This means that a local laws officer can enter private land to investigate any breach of the Casey Community Law 2023.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah. If the gallery continues to be disorderly and abusive, I will have to end the meeting. Please be quiet.
This means that a local officer can enter private land to investigate any breach of the Casey Community Local Law 2023 and may remove any items found causing that breach of the local law or arrange for works to be carried out to rectify a breach of the local law.
The next question from Traveller: can the council explain how the proposed permits for unregistered vehicles, recreation vehicles, long heavy vehicles and temporary dwellings balance the need for community regulation with the rights and practical needs of residents? Additionally, what specific community concerns or incidents prompted these changes and what measures are being considered to minimise the financial and administrative burden on residents?
Council receives 10,000 complaints each year relating to the Casey Community Local Law. There are 20 local law permits in place for activities on private land, which have originated from those complaints. This demonstrates a balanced approach to enforcement and regulation where officers look to educate and work with the community members as a first option. Local laws that regulate the use of unregistered vehicles, long and heavy vehicles, recreation vehicles and temporary accommodation are not new local laws clauses. They have been in place at Casey for many years, and similar clauses can be found in local laws for most councils across Victoria.
The next question from Trav Leah is, if we were to have 3 or more unregistered cars on my property without a permit, possibly causing a nuisance to neighbours with noise and dust, how does having a permit stop it from being a nuisance? Thank you, Mr. Paddy.
A local law permit creates safeguards to neighbours to limit or mitigate any possible nuisance that may be associated with that activity. Conditions may include where vehicles are stored on a property or what time of day activities can be conducted. For example, a permit may state that an activity cannot commence before 7 a.m. and after 8 p.m, limiting the negative impact on surrounding neighbours.
The next question from Darren Hughes is, when is the council going to amend these laws which rate-paying homeowners cannot work in a vehicle on their property nor even store a caravan or trailer over 7.5 metres long. Many people have hobbies involving working on their vehicles, some registered and some unregistered, such as track cars or restoration builds, and a majority of caravans manufactured exceed 7.5 metres in length. These laws need to be amended to something fair and reasonable without any cost to residents.
Local laws that regulate the storing of unregistered vehicles are not new local law clauses. They have been in place at Casey for many years, and similar clauses can be found in local laws across most councils in Victoria. You are able to keep up to 2 unregistered vehicles on private land without a local law permit. Holders of a Vic Roads Club permit for veteran, vintage and classic cars are not required to have a local law permit. Local laws officers are authorised under the Local Government Act. The Local Government Act 1989 states that authorised officers may enter any land or building in the municipal district and at any reasonable time to carry out and enforce this or under other act and regulations under the local law. Unregistered vehicles are identified as such by checking the VIN number against Vic Roads records.
The next question is from Brian Bennett. Why can't you do this without a permit on your property when it is a project car you're building? So I have to maintain your property being a nature strip. Please explain. I find this unjustified and ridiculous. If they are not visible from the street and not causing environmental issues, I don't see what the grounds you have to seize other people's property.
I'll just acknowledge that the next few questions that we received are similar in nature, so some of the responses are actually going to be similar as well. So you are able to keep 2 unregistered vehicles on private land without a local law permit. As mentioned before, holders of a Vic Roads Club permit for veteran, vintage and classic cars do not require a local law permit. This will be repetitious, but local
Sorry,
laws...
quiet. Can we please get some quiet? Allow the response to be made. We need to remember these questions come from residents who are present today and would like to have their response heard. Quiet, please.
As I stated, there's some repetition in the responses given the nature of the questions being the same. Local laws officers are authorised under the Local Government Act 1989. Section 224 of the Local Government Act states that...
Sorry, we'll just get a pause there, Mr. Paddy. Understand the interjection. Have we got an update on the live feed? Is that... We're just checking. One moment, we're getting clarification. It's live. The feed is live. I've just had confirmation the feed is live. I understand it's been continued throughout the meeting. Mr. Paddy, the response, please.
You are able to keep up to 2 unregistered vehicles on private land without a local law permit. Local laws officers are authorised under the Local Government Act 1989. Section 224 of the Local Government Act states that an authorised officer may enter any land or building in the municipal district at any reasonable time to carry out and enforce this or any other act and regulation.
The next question is from Mark Stevenson. If a resident of Casey can't afford a permit to repair their car, will council provide a workspace free of charge?
This response has been shared previously as part of a similar question. A member of the community simply working on their car, tinkering or maintaining their vehicle on their own land does not require a local laws permit.
The next question is from Alan Murphy. Why all of a sudden has council adopted a Gestapo approach to the use of private land by seizing vehicles that they consider to be unregistered? Just because a vehicle has no registration plate affixed does not automatically make it unregistered. What process did the council use and what is the protocol to determine if a vehicle is unregistered?
The local laws clauses in place have been in place at Casey for many years, with similar clauses found in local laws across most councils in Victoria. Unregistered vehicles are identified as such by checking a VIN number against the Vic Roads records.
The next question is, what steps is council taking to ensure that private property owners can use their land for car storage, restoration projects and the pursuit of one's individual passion or hobby in the automotive world without being discriminated.
As per the local law, you are able to keep up to 2 unregistered vehicles on private land without council loan. An application can be made to apply for a local law permit to store additional unregistered cars on your property.
Next question, please, Mr. Coldham.
The next question is from Sandra Young, and we're just shifting category here from Sandra Young. Sandra Young asks, the time of this meeting, 4 p.m, is not conducive to more people attending. For example, children who have been picked up from school and many that work business hours 9 to 5. So in the public interest, I request you change the times of these meetings to 7 p.m. Ms Bednar will answer this one.
At the council meeting on 10th of December 2024, the council adopted the council meeting dates and times for 2025. Council endorsed for council meetings to schedule to commence at 6 p.m.
Sandra also asks, to build public trust and enable fair and equitable dialogue between council and communities, I requested at council meetings a table with a microphone be set up to enable the public to respond to council's responses to their questions. Ms Bednar will respond to that.
Public question time is included on the council meeting agenda to allow for clarification of issues of public interest. If a resident is seeking further responses to the clarifications provided, the resident is able to speak directly to their ward councillor or to contact council to discuss further with a council officer.
The next question is from Malcolm Sharp, and he asks, is the City of Casey responsible for naming road bridges? If so, what's the process for naming bridges? Mr Collins will answer this one.
Councils prioritise the naming of new facilities, reserves and existing features where there is a safety concern raised by emergency services. Any feature naming proposals by council must comply with the Geographic Names Victoria rules for places in Victoria. Bridges are not a significant feature and therefore are not currently a priority for renaming.
The next question is from Sue Lanigan. As a state government appointed administrator, I asked Mr Boardman under the Local Government Act 130 Section 2A why he did not declare a conflict of interest for the council meeting on 18th July 2023 when considering the state initiative for the adoption of the amendment of the Hampton Park Hill Development Plan. Therefore, under Section 130 2B, you and your fellow administrators should have excluded yourself from the decision-making process. This will be answered by Ms Bednar.
The panel of administrators were appointed following the dismissal of Casey City councillors. If I could please respond.
I ask the gallery to be quiet, please, to allow Ms Bednar to respond.
So, following the dismissal of Casey City councillors under the Local Government Casey City Council 2020 Bill, which passed Parliament on 19 February 2020. Under Section 231A of the Local Government Act 2020, administrators must perform and assume the role, including all functions, powers and duties of a councillor, including complying with relevant policies, including the Governance Rules 2020 and the then Councillor Code of Conduct 2023, which has since been replaced with the Model Code of Conduct.
The next question is from Tim Reid, and Tim asks, after months of engagement with stakeholders, including the Victorian School Building Authority and Council's planning team, they confirmed that no public consultation or impact studies were conducted regarding the new location of Casey Central Primary School. The new location impacts congested arterials not designed for accommodating traffic for 2 schools. Can Council provide updated plans that detail how the traffic, parking and safety issues will be addressed? That'll be responded to by Mr Collins.
Planning for the development of the Cranbourne North Precinct assumed the delivery of 2 government primary schools in the precinct, the Tallyalan and Casey Central Primary Schools. Therefore, the planned road network shown in the Cranbourne North Development Plan and Precinct Structure Plan can accommodate the traffic generated by these 2 schools. Upon the opening of the Casey Central Primary School in January 2026, Council officers will monitor traffic and parking patterns during the school peak periods and introduce appropriate traffic management measures as needed.
Got a second question from Mr Tim Reid. Given the lack of transparency associated with the Casey Central Primary School and the apparent neglect for Council's public transparency policy, what measures will the new Council implement for future community interest projects to ensure that consultation takes place prior to construction? Thank you, Mr Collins.
The proposed location of the Casey Central Primary School at 61 William Thwaites Boulevard, Cranbourne North, was determined to be generally in accordance with the Cranbourne North Development Plan. Planning proposals that are generally in accordance with a development plan do not require community engagement. Further, the acquisition of land and development of the school by the Minister for Education did not require a planning permit from Council. The Victorian Government do not undertake community engagement on these proposals. Council has and will continue to comply with the requirements of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 regarding when community engagement occurs.
The next question is from Rito Freyhofer. Why can't we, after 7 years, subdivide in an area that has all services but still has the overlay DPO, even though we are fully developed? Mr Collins.
Council officers are currently reviewing the Narre South Part A development plan, which applies to College Drive, Narre South. While parts of the precinct have been fully developed to 4,000 square metre allotments, more work is needed to ensure that drainage and road networks can support any newly created 2,000 square metre allotments. This work is progressing as part of a broader review of development plans in Casey, which may lead to some development plans being reduced in size or removed if they are no longer necessary. It is anticipated that the recommendations from the review will be completed by the end of 2025.
The next question is from Josh Meyer. I've noticed that there are lots of areas around Clyde North where there's significant amounts of overgrown vegetation and weeds. Why does it seem like Council's not making an effort to clean up these areas? Thank you, Mr Collins.
We have a regular schedule for mowing and weeding in our open spaces, including regular cycles in Clyde North. However, it's important to note that not all public land is maintained by Council. Areas around state roads, body corporate areas and Melbourne water land are not our responsibility. Clyde North is also a rapidly expanding suburb and many open spaces within the area remains under developer maintenance responsibility. We ensure the upkeep and management of land within the jurisdiction and maintenance responsibilities of Casey Council through mowing, landscaping, tree maintenance and general upkeep, and they're conducted regularly as per contract specifications. In most open spaces and key roadside areas, every 3 to 4 weeks. Raising matters through the Casey's customer service channels via the Snaps and Solve app or Council's website contact us will allow us to investigate the specific sites or issues of concern to you and then determine any appropriate action.
Sorry, you done? Yep. The next question is, can you please advise how many viewers, excluding staff, watched the last council meeting via live stream? Thanks, Ms Bednar.
At the council meeting on 10th December 2024, there were 69 people who viewed the live stream broadcast for longer than 1 minute, according to Facebook data. Council cannot distinguish which viewers are employees and which are community members.
The next question is from Tammy Robertson. What is the City of Casey doing to protect law-abiding citizens? And Mr Paddy will answer that.
The City of Casey is committed to creating a safe and accessible environment for all residents and visitors. Every year, Council implements initiatives that address identified safety issues, such as better lighting and the redesign of public spaces. While the management of crime and law enforcement is the responsibility of Victoria Police, the City of Casey actively advocates for enhanced community safety outcomes.
The next question is from Marzina Mansilla. Will the new elected councils commit to reviewing the planning protocols introduced by the administrators in May 2024 before the scheduled May 2028 review? And if so, what date will this take place? Thank you, Mr Collins.
Councillors have received briefings on the protocols for councillors' land use planning policy, which was last updated in May 2024 to localise the recommendations from the IBAC Operations Sandon report. At this point in time, there is no fixed date to review this policy.
Next question is from Owen Weeks. Is the City of Casey obliged to, by law, to follow the Casey Planning Scheme, VPPS? Can the City of Casey Planning Department please make a planning decision contrary to the planning scheme, and if so, how?
When making a decision on a planning permit application, council is obliged to have consideration for the relevant aspects of the Casey planning scheme and associated legislation, such as the Planning and Environment Act 1987. If you have any specific query about the operation of the planning scheme in relation to a planning decision, it's best to please contact our statutory planning team via the customer service.
Malcolm Sharp asks, at the council meeting dated 10th December 24, questions 1 and 2 related to signage with the state government's decision to rename Berwick Springs Lake. The answers referred to the planning scheme section 520510, signs not requiring a permit. Following FOI requests, we understand a monument is proposed. Will council be consulted in this case? If so, will council consult residents before any decision is made or do signs approved? Thank you, Mr Collins.
Council has advocated that a consultation process be taken with the community regarding the design, installation and location of any signage. A letter was sent on the 23rd of December 2024 to the Department of Premier and Cabinet and Geographic Names, Victoria, to this effect. To date, no response has been received by the state government and it is unknown whether council and the community will be consulted on any signage proposed.
The next question is from Anthony Tassone. The walk and ride in Casey strategy was first endorsed by Council on 3rd December 2019 with review date of December 2023. Has this strategy been reviewed? And as part of Strategic Objective 3, a feasibility study was undertaken for the Casey Coastal Trail, including planning for a destination trail between Tooradin, which was due in 2021. Has this been completed? And if not, when will it be?
The walk and ride in Casey Strategy 2019 to 2041 has not been formally reviewed and it is still relevant and providing guidance on walking and cycling project priorities. At this time, resources have not been allocated to undertake the feasibility study for the Casey Coastal Trail. This will be reviewed as part of future budget processes.
And the next question is from Alan Murphy. Who authorised the Casey Council administrators to have free rein and act on resident and ratepayers' behalf? Introducing new regulations just 4 days before being sworn in. This will be answered by Ms Bednar.
Apologies. The Minister for Local Government appointed the panel of administrators following the dismissal of Casey City Councillors under the Local Government Casey City Council 2020 Bill, which passed Parliament on 19th February 2020.
Thank you, Mayor. That notes our last public question for this evening.
Thank you for that, Mr Coldham. On behalf of the councillors, I would just like to thank those residents who've raised questions. A reminder that all responses will be published in the minutes and there are opportunities for people to ask further questions. You can submit those through the website. Before we move on to officer reports, I just wanted to give people an opportunity, if they do wish to vacate their seat because their question has been answered, they are welcome to do so now. Before we move on to officer reports, which will occur at item 5 of the agenda. All questions have been answered as far as I'm aware. 60 questions. All questions have been answered. They were checked upon arrival against people's names. All questions that have been submitted will receive a response and it will be in the minutes, and all those who are in attendance today have been read. I'll now move on to item 5, officers' reports. There are 4 officer reports this evening in open council. All questions have been answered. All questions have been answered. Item 5.1. I ask for quiet in the gallery, please.
So we either need to have a break or persist with 5.1. What do you want to do? Do you want to persist?
Can you clarify that there was some that were... Are you able to clarify? Can we clarify?
Just say all the questions received that met our governance rules
All questions received that met the governance rules were responded to at the meeting today. The 3 questions that weren't responded to will receive an email. Before we move on to officer reports, I ask for the gallery to be quiet. If we continue to have interjections, we will have to adjourn the meeting. Under clause 79 of the City of Casey governance rules, I'm adjourning this meeting for 10 minutes. The council meeting will resume at 7:35. Will all councillors and staff vacate the council chamber for 10 minutes?
proceedings today. Thank you. And folks, by the way, we appreciate your calm and your compromise in relation to today's meeting. We understand there's a lot of heightened emotion, and we are doing our best to make sure that everyone feels heard and all of the concerns are being addressed. We'll do our best.
All right, thank you for those residents who've remained for our formal business, which we'll now conduct, which is item 5, officers' reports.
Open question time.
A reminder to the gallery that we are here to conduct a meeting. We have completed the public question time and we're now going on to conduct our formal business as per the agenda. If there are continued interjections, then we will have to adjourn the meeting again to another time.
Let's go. 5.1.
All right, we are going to begin with item 5.1, which is the MAV State Council submission, and the officer to speak to that report is Miss Chloe Casey.
Thank you and good evening, councillors. On 16th of May 2025, the Municipal Association of Victoria, also known as the MAV, will be holding its next State Council meeting. State Council is the MAV's governing body and is made up of delegates from each member council, of which the City of Casey is a member. As part of State Council, the MAV invite delegates to submit notice of motions to the MAV CEO at least 60 days before the meeting. All motions submitted to the MAV must be the subject of a council resolution. The MAV board considers the motion's strategic relevance to the association or significance to local government for approval. If approved, the motion is presented at State Council for members to consider and vote on. In this report, the officers are recommending that the City of Casey submit 2 notices of motion to the MAV for consideration at MAV State Council. The first being that the MAV calls on the Victorian State Government to mandate cellular telecommunication networks as an essential service and planning controls that require earlier delivery of cellular communication services in new residential and commercial estates. The second being that the MAV requests the state government to consult with councils to understand the effects of the Best Start, Best Life reforms and the identified issues that will prevent all Victorian children having universal access to 2 years of funded kindergarten. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Casey. Before we proceed to questions, can I ask the member of the gallery who's playing the national anthem to please turn that off? It is considered an interjection in accordance with our governance rules. Councillors, have we got any questions in relation to the report before us? No questions? Do I have a motion from any councillors? Councillor Dowling, you would like to put the motion as put on the... Yep, sure. And do we have a seconder? Councillor Dazon, seconder. Councillor Dowling, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think it's an excellent motion and looking after our young kids, the future of our society.
Thank you, Councillor Dowling. Councillor Dazon, as seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. Through you, Mayor, the issue of mobile black spots is a serious concern in my ward, particularly in Clyde and Clyde North. I've spoken to a lot of residents who have told me that they can't even contact 000, and this is not just an inconvenience, it's a public safety risk. Reliable mobile coverage is essential, especially in emergencies. That is why I strongly support mandating cellular communication networks as an essential service and planning controls that require earlier delivery of cellular communication services in new residential and commercial estates.
Thank you, Councillor Dazon. Is there any opposition to the motion? Councillors, would anyone else like to speak on the motion? Councillor Crowther.
Through you, Mayor, I support the telecommunications part of the motion, but I would really like to emphasise the importance of the early years part of the motion. We are headed for a crisis in Casey Kinders in the coming years. Currently, we can't service our maternal health needs in terms of appointments, and currently there's 100 or 200 children this year missing out on 4-year-old kinder here in Casey. We just don't have enough spots. So I hope with this motion we will be able to raise the issue with the state government and help our Casey kids of the future.
Thank you, Councillor Crowther. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No further speakers.
Sorry.
I'll put this to... Sorry, Councillor Ross.
Hi, I would just like to quickly add my support for the early years motion, given the extremely high percentage of children 0 to 6 years in Casey. And we are going to do a lot to support our family and young children and their parents.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Thank you. All right, we will put that to a vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to item 5.2, which is road discontinuance, which is for Sophra Road, Bells Road crossing. And the officer to speak to the item is Catherine Searles. Ms Searles.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, this motion is to finalise a small discontinuance of a section of the Sophra Road crossing over the desalination pipeline easement at the request of the State Government, Melbourne Water. We went to public consultation on the proposal and got no submissions, and we're recommending today that it be endorsed and finalised.
Thank you, Ms Searles. Are there any questions from councillors for Ms Searles? No questions. In relation to this report, do I have a motion, councillors? Councillor Walter. Thank you. Motion as noted on the screen? Yep. Thank you. And in your papers. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rowe. And Councillor Walter, would you like to speak to the motion? Please, to the members of the gallery, please don't interject. Councillor Walter, you have the floor. Please show some respect to your councillors as they speak to this motion. To the gallery, this is the final warning. If we don't have quiet, we will have to adjourn the meeting. I ask for quiet, please. Under Clause 79 of the City of Casey Governance Rules, I'm adjourning this meeting tonight and it will resume at a date to be determined. Will all councillors and staff vacate the council chamber?